Right. So we have covered the two components of R Markdown, okay, the metadata, which is optional really, and then text formatting, and then finally the code chunk. So that is where you write your program. Right? So you insert code chunk with Control-Alt-I, and then you have lots of other shortcuts. Okay, we really don't have to use any of the other shortcuts. Okay, you can run the programs from here. I mean, run the chunks from here, or you can run the chunk right there. Okay. Now, you will have lots of different code chunks in the file. Okay, and how the code chunk will get processed can be set as a default option, right? The default options are, see, when you create a new RMD file, the default options are set for you right here, okay? And if you're happy with that, you can just accept that and you don't have to do anything. And those are the options that will be default for all code chunks that you may insert later in the document, okay? So what are those options that are available? Now, if you want to override that, then you can override those options in an individual code chunk, okay? So let's look at the options that are available. Here, knit or code chunk options, okay, they are separated by comma, okay, okay, results equal to and hide will suppress the output. It will run the code, but it will not give you any output, okay. As is written as is, and then you can have figure height, figure width. If you're going to create any figures using, plotting commands, then you can control the height and width with that. Okay. Now these two are important. Suppose if you want to put a code that you don't want, you're testing something and you want to leave the code there, but you don't want to execute it when you're actually running the program, then you can say eval equal to false. Okay. Eval equal to true is default. You don't have to, if you want it to be true, you don't have to say anything. Okay. Now echo is true or false. It's again a very useful option. So that means when you run the code in the chunk, do you want to echo each line of code and then show the results? Okay. Sometimes that's useful, but sometimes it's not. Okay. So you can suppress the echo, okay, by saying echo equal to false. Okay. And then there is warning, and this is something that you have to be very careful, okay, because warnings are sometimes, warning is what? Warning is the code is, we are able to execute the code, but there is something fishy about it. That's what the warning is. So you shouldn't suppress warning unless you know exactly what the warning is, and that's okay. Okay, then you can suppress the warning. But you have to be very, very careful suppressing warnings. Include is whether to include the output in the document. When you knit and create a document, whether you want to include that or not. And message equal to true or false is really good one when, okay, this may not make sense right now, but we will be attaching libraries when we run programs. And the libraries will generate messages. Like, okay, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and doing that, and that kind of thing, which is really no use to us. So you can suppress the messages when you're invoking a library. Okay, we'll see an example of that either today or next time. Okay, so these are the options that you can set in the default chunk. Okay, so that's the one that we saw at the top. Okay, well, I guess it's like here. Okay, so that's your default. Okay, and so when you have a chunk that goes like this, right? Or setup. Okay. So now I'm saying include equal to false because I don't want to include this default to be appearing in my document when I generate a PDF document. This is of no importance as far as looking at the document is concerned. All right. And then this is the code which sets up the default code options for all the code chunks. Okay. So that would be the default. So ops underscore chunk $set, and then you can have okay, like you can put more than just one option by simply putting a comma and then say message equal. It's going to prompt you, so that's a very nice thing. So you know that you have typed properly. If it doesn't prompt, you have a situation there. Okay, so true is all cap and so on. You can have any one of those options that we just went over. Okay, and you want some of them to be set as the default init or options for all the code chunks. You'll put in this place. Okay. All right, now options for individual code chunks. Okay, so if you have individual code chunk, what will you do? Okay, so here again, I did Control Alt I. Control Alt I will insert a new code chunk for me. Now, if I want to override the option that was set up in the default options, right? Then I have to go down here right after R. I put a comma and then, okay, write eval equal to false. So now the original, okay, here, well, eval, by default, eval is true, right? So now I'm saying eval is false, so that means this chunk overrides the default. I mean, this option here that I have specified overrides the default, and this chunk will not be executed. Okay, so summary is a function, and if you specify a data set, it will produce summary for you. And RStudio comes with a whole set of data sets by default. Okay, so I'm going to use the cause data set. Okay, now if I execute it, it's going to execute because I'm forcing execution. But when I init, it will not get executed because I say eval is false. Okay. If you want to know what data sets are there in R, so you can say data sets right there. Okay, and then it'll give you the list of data sets that come with RStudio, and there is a brief description of what each data set is. Okay, this is for us to practice R. So this is okay. So I should have put that over here. Skip the code chunk would be that. Okay. Now another nice option that's available is inline R code expression. So that this is when you have a small computation that you want to make, and you want to use the result of that in the text portion. Okay, so you made some computations, you have some results, and you want to take that result and use it not inside the code chunk, but outside the code chunk in the text portion. then you can use the inline, so that will be the backtick R, and then what you want. Okay, let me give an example of that. Okay. So here is an example of inline R code expression. So I'm going to compute something now. Okay, all right. Let's say that x is equal to the mean. Okay. And I want to use cars. Okay. And if I put a dollar sign, that's going to give me a list of all the variables inside the data set. Okay. So now I'm going to calculate the mean of, say, speed. Okay. And I'm going to save that in X. In R, normally you'll use the assignment is like this. Okay. Even though equal will work, but the regular convention, R convention, is to use less than and then a hyphen for assignment. So now it's going to compute the mean and assign that value to the variable x. Okay. Now when I run it, it's going to create a variable, and here is the variable value right there. So in this window, there are 4 windows. Remember, we talked about this, and I didn't really go into each of those windows in detail. But one of the 4 windows is the environment, where it will tell you what are the different variables and data frames that you have created, and so you have that there. Okay. And now suppose we want to, outside the chunk, right? Now you are outside the chunk. It's just text. Okay. And then we say the average speed of cars in the cars data set. Okay. Let's do it this way. Cars is, okay. So now I want to insert the value of x there. Okay. Then I put a backtick. The backtick is to the left of the number 1 key at the top. Okay. R, and then x, and then complete the expression with the backtick again. Okay. For the cars in the cars data set. Okay. So now if you knit, okay, see here in this line, so this line is getting rendered. Okay, so that part is converted into the value.